Hello, this is Rispat Momit, and today I'm going to show you how to use the new Apollo shaders for Unity URP. I will start by creating a very basic scene with the military radio model by Kurichneknov. Sorry for killing the name. I have the link on the description so you can check it out because it's a really nice model. So I created a material for the ground and I'm going to change the shader from Universal Rendering Pipeline Lead of Unity to Apollo URP Standard Opaque. I'm going to select a texture and I'm going to apply the material on our mesh. As you can see here, all functions of the shader can be turned off and on. This will let you customize the shader based on your needs and also make it run faster because some of the functions you sometimes don't need, so you can just take them out by turning off the boolean here. For example, the color here, we won't need it, but in case we need it, we turn it on and we set up the color. But most of the times when our texture is good, we won't need the color. So with Apollo URP, you can just turn this off. I'm also gonna turn on the normal map. You see this strange effect? It's because we need to add the texture. And we can always adjust the power of our normal map. That's good for now. Let's go to the radio. I'm gonna create a new material. I'm gonna change to Apollo URP Standard Opaque. I'm going to find the radio texture and apply it to the model. I need one more material for the glass. This time we go to Apollo URP, we select standard and then transparent, and we drag it, drop it there, and we can set up the transparency. We also have a refractive shader in the collection. I'm gonna show it to you later. For now, let's focus on how the standard shaders are working. So we set up the texture. Next thing, we're gonna set up the PBR maps. We can see that we can adjust the smoothness and the metalness of the model. I'm gonna set it up to 0 both because I want you to see something. When we activate this boolean and we drag and drop our maps, we see that nothing happened, and this is because we have to adjust the smoothness. I let this here so you can still adjust the power of smoothness and metalness based on your needs, and you don't have to get very restrictive on the texture. Now we have the ability to use emission, so we activate use emission. As you can see, it will follow the PBR maps, and just by saying use emission, it will use the color of your texture to create the emission color. Now, if you want to say use emission color, you can adjust the colors of the parts of the model you want to have emissive material. Now, if we didn't want the green to affect our colors, we would just set that area white in our main texture and change the color of the emission through here. Right now I'm not gonna use this, so I just turn it off. And I'm also gonna add the normal map and activate it. Next we have fuzz. It's a really nice effect. It adds an overlay, a brightness on your model, and if you adjust the Fresnel, you can set this to the edges of your model and make it shine when we have a different angle to it. And of course, Apollo has the ability to add coat on your models. We turn it on. We can control the Fresnel and the power of the coat, and also of course the roughness. And that's it. Let's change the sun. We set it to mixed, and I'm gonna change it so we can have a nice long shadow there. I'm gonna set my models to static, and I'm going to bake the light in. And let's see the magic. And this is the result of the Apollo shaders. We can adjust the glass material to make it look nice and smooth and metallic, so it has a nice reflection there. And this is the main the main functions of our material here. Next up, it's the light manager, which is the most important tool in the Apollo shaders. So, where to find the light manager? We go to Apollo URP folder, Apollo scripts, and here it is, Apollo Light Manager for URP. We can put the script anywhere in the scene. I would recommend you to put it in the direction light so you can have an easy access to it. I have set up some standard settings here, but we'll see how all these affect our rendering. So let's see the script. We have the sun. This option is not necessary. We can set up the sun here by choosing our main light of the scene, because we have the option of managing the append light based on the intensity of our light. So as you can see here, the append intensity, it will follow the intensity of our main light. That's not necessary, but if you want to make a nice transition to day and night, that would be useful. First thing, in the occlusion settings, we have the occlusion volume. This is a very important element of the Apollo shaders that will let you adjust the power of the occlusion. By default, in the Unity standard shaders, this is 0. So let me show you an example. If our smoothness here is very high, we see this white surface. Now if we adjust the occlusion volume, we see that this gets control up to 100%. When in Unity, let me create a shader, a similar shader for Unity standard for URP. We have this effect. So from here we get back to Unity standard shader that, as you can see, there is no connection between the shadows and the reflections, so our model is floating on the air. The solution here is to have already baked the ambient occlusion in another software, so that you can skip this issue. But with Apollo shaders, you really don't need to have anything pre-baked. As you can see, immediately the reflections get occluded. And of course, you can adjust this through the occlusion volume. So if I set it to 0, you can see that even in Apollo we have the same effect of not occluded reflections, but as I set this higher, the reflections get a nice occlusion. The contrast power is to set the occlusion a nice contrast effect that will make the colors and the shadows of the scene pop up and take care of those contact shadows. So let me set it back to 0, and we can see how those shadows get affected by the contrast, and also the colors and the metalness. It becomes much more vivid. Next, we have the lighting settings. Before I explain what is Eclipse, let's see the light add. Light add is here, so it will add additional light in the overall scene, including the lighting of your skybox. This will light up your environment, but also include the ambient light in your scene, make it emerge even more with your environment. So as you can see, we light up the whole model, because by increasing the occlusion volume, we see that some details are lost, but by adding light, we are back in business. Although we have an issue. As you can see here, the whites of our textures are overexposed. If we take down the light add, we can see the nice details here, but by the time we set it all the way up, they get lost. One solution is to change the color of your material and set it to a darker color altogether. But the function that you are I'm sure suspecting is taking care of that, and this function is Eclipse. So with Eclipse you can remove the exposed highlights of your scene. This works mainly in the baked lighting. Of course, if you overdo it, you're gonna have artifacts. So let's say we set it all the way up. We can see here that in between the shadows and the whites, there is an outline of light. And if we set the light add down, that effect is even stronger. And the same happens if we set the occlusion volume to 0, to lower values. So I'm gonna set it, let's set it again to 0 and remove some of the eclipse to see how it works. So we really have full control over the lighting of our scene. I'm gonna increase the occlusion to remove those reflections. We can increase the contrast power because we have the light add to bring back all of our lighting details, and then control the super exposed highlights with Eclipse. I have a nice rendering result.